Motivation is a lie. And the ancient samurai knew this centuries ago. While most people wake up waiting to feel inspired before taking action, Eastern warriors built internal empires based on something far deeper than fleeting feelings. There's an ancient Japanese philosophy that transforms evolution into daily ritual. It works on days of victory, days of defeat, and especially when the soul is at war with itself. It's not about brute discipline. It's about installing an internal system as precise as a katana's blade. And the most impressive part, this ancestral knowledge is so simple that when you discover it, you'll wonder how you survived so long without it. Samurai didn't wait for courage to enter battle. They created a code that made action inevitable, regardless of fear. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal forgotten Eastern principles that transform progress into a natural consequence of your day. Prepare to discover what Oriental masters knew about constant evolution. The warrior stands at dawn, sword in hand, facing an enemy that outnumbers his forces 10 to 1. His heart pounds. Fear screams at him to retreat. Yet his feet move forward. Why? Because centuries ago, Eastern warriors discovered something revolutionary. Action doesn't follow feeling. Feeling follows action. This changes everything about how we approach daily progress. Most people have it completely backwards. They wait to feel ready, to feel motivated, to feel confident. The samurai code taught the opposite. Move first. The emotion catches up later. This wasn't philosophy for scrolls and temples. This was survival wisdom forged in actual life or death moments. Here's what this looks like in modern life. Morning arrives. The alarm screams. Every cell in your body wants to stay in bed. The old approach says, get motivated first. The warrior approach says, feet on floor now. No negotiation. No internal debate. The decision was made yesterday, last week, last year. This moment isn't about choosing. It's about executing a pre-decided action. Think of it like this. A katana doesn't ask permission to cut. Once drawn, it moves. Your morning routine should work the same way. The blade of your daily practice gets drawn the moment your eyes open. What happens next isn't up for discussion with your sleepy brain. But there's a deeper layer here that most miss. The samurai didn't just act without feeling. They understood that the gap between thought and action is where dreams go to die. Every second you spend thinking about doing something, you're actually training yourself not to do it. Your brain loves comfort. Give it time to negotiate, and it will find 17 reasons why tomorrow is better than today. This is why warriors developed rituals, not because rituals are magical, because rituals eliminate the gap. When the morning bell rang in ancient dojos, bodies moved automatically. No thought required. The space where procrastination lives simply didn't exist. The practical application is almost too simple. Choose one action, just one. Something so small that your brain can't build a case against it. Not work out for an hour, more like put on workout clothes. Not write a chapter, more like open the document. The size doesn't matter. What matters is the elimination of thinking time. Here's where it gets interesting. Once motion starts, continuation becomes natural. Physics applies to humans too. A body in motion stays in motion. The hardest part of any task isn't the task itself. It's the transition from stillness to movement. Samurai understood this instinctively. They trained the starting motion until it became unconscious. Traditional discipline says, be strong enough to start. Warrior discipline says, make starting so automatic that strength isn't required. There's a massive difference. One relies on your daily energy levels. The other bypasses that system entirely. The modern world weaponizes the gap between intention and action. Every app, every notification, every distraction is designed to widen that space. They profit when you delay, when you think instead of do, when you plan instead of practice. The ancient response to this is brutally simple. Close the gap so fast that nothing can live there. This connects directly to what comes next, because once you've mastered the art of starting, the question becomes, how do you sustain progress without burning out? Picture a master craftsman polishing a single blade. Not for hours, not dramatically, just 3 minutes each morning. After a year, that blade can split a falling leaf. After 10 years, it becomes legendary. Nobody filmed the process. No one posted about it. The magic happened in tiny, invisible increments. Western culture worships the overnight transformation. The dramatic before and after. The shocking reveal. Eastern wisdom laughs at this. Real change is so subtle that cameras can't capture it. It happens in the space between heartbeats, in fractions so small they seem meaningless, until suddenly they're everything. This is Kaizen, continuous improvement through microscopic upgrades, and it destroys the biggest lie about personal growth. That significant change requires significant effort. The truth is almost offensive in its simplicity. Significant change requires consistent effort. The size of each effort barely matters. Think about water carving through stone. Each drop does essentially nothing. The stone doesn't even notice. But give it enough time, enough consistency, and that water creates canyons. Canyons that dwarf mountains, not through force, through relentless, patient repetition. Most people fail at growth because they try to become different people overnight. They want the finished sword without the 1,000 days of folding metal. They want the master's skill without the decade of daily practice. Kaizen asks a different question. What's the smallest improvement possible right now? Not tomorrow, not eventually. This exact moment, here's a real example. Reading 20 pages feels hard when you're tired. Reading 1 page feels like nothing. But 1 page daily becomes 365 pages yearly. That's multiple books. That's an entirely new knowledge base. All from something so small it feels almost embarrassing to count as progress. The psychological trick here runs deep. Big goals trigger resistance. Your brain sees a mountain and says, "That's too much." Small steps trigger curiosity. Your brain sees a pebble and says, "Sure, whatever." You slip past your own defense systems. The change happens before the resistance can organize. Japanese factories revolutionized manufacturing with this exact principle. Instead of massive overhauls, they implemented tiny daily improvements. Workers suggested small tweaks. Management tested minor adjustments. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that required shutting down production. Just endless small refinements. Within years, they dominated global markets. Not through innovation, through accumulation. Your life works the same way. The difference between who you are and who you want to become isn't a leap. It's 10,000 micro-adjustments, each one barely visible. Together, they create transformation that looks like magic to outside observers. But here's the part that connects everything. Small steps only work if you take them imperfectly. And that's where most people get stuck. They want tiny progress, but perfect execution. That combination kills momentum faster than laziness ever could. Ancient tea ceremony masters deliberately chose cracked bowls, asymmetrical vessels, pieces that modern eyes might call flawed. They understood something that perfectionism blinds us to. Imperfection contains wisdom that perfection can never teach. This isn't about accepting mediocrity. It's about recognizing that the crack in the bowl tells a story. The asymmetry reveals the human hand. The imperfection proves it's real. A machine can make perfect circles. Only humans can make beautiful mistakes. Western achievement culture creates a terrible trap. It says, wait until you're ready. It says, don't start until you can do it right. It says perfect or nothing. Meanwhile, Eastern philosophy whispers a secret. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Not because perfection is bad, because pursuing it stops you from starting. Consider the garden. A perfectly manicured lawn requires constant intervention. It fights nature at every turn. But a wabi-sabi garden works with natural imperfection. The moss grows where it wants. Stones settle at odd angles. Dead leaves become part of the beauty. Less maintenance, more authenticity, deeper impact. Your growth journey mirrors this completely. Waiting for perfect conditions means never beginning. Perfect knowledge, perfect timing, perfect energy levels, perfect circumstances. These things don't exist. They're mirages that keep you frozen. The entrepreneur who launches an imperfect product learns more in 1 month than the perfectionist learns in 1 year of planning. The writer who publishes flawed work improves faster than the one who edits the same chapter endlessly. The athlete who trains with bad form but shows up daily will eventually surpass the one who waits for perfect technique before starting. Here's why. Feedback only comes from action. You can't improve what you haven't attempted. Every mistake is information. Every failure is data. Every imperfect repetition teaches your body something new. Perfectionists collect theories. Practitioners collect scars. Guess who actually evolves? Japanese swordsmiths understood this deeply. The folding process that creates legendary blades isn't about perfection. It's about intentionally breaking and reforming the metal hundreds of times. Each break makes it stronger. Each imperfection, when folded back into the whole, adds character and resilience. The final blade isn't perfect, it's tempered. There's a massive difference. Your setbacks work identically. That day you broke your streak? That's data about your triggers. That goal you missed? Information about your planning. That moment you failed publicly? Proof you were brave enough to try. None of it is wasted unless you treat it as defeat instead of feedback. This connects to something crucial about your environment, because wabi-sabi isn't just about accepting your own imperfections. It's about designing spaces that support imperfect action. Traditional Japanese architecture leaves deliberate emptiness, not because they ran out of ideas, not because they couldn't afford decoration, because they understood that power lives in the space between things. Western rooms fear silence. Eastern rooms worship it. This principle applies to human achievement in ways that sound backwards until you test them. Everyone obsesses about adding more habits, more productivity hacks, more morning routines, more goals. Eastern wisdom suggests the opposite. Strategic subtraction creates acceleration. Think about music. The notes matter, obviously, but the silence between notes? That's where emotion lives. Remove the pauses, and you get noise, not melody, not meaning, just overwhelming sound that says nothing. Your daily schedule works the same way. Fill every moment, and you get busy. Not productive, not focused, just exhausted. Here's what nobody talks about. Margin creates performance. The best athletes don't train 24 hours daily. They train hard, then rest completely. That emptiness between sessions, that's when muscles actually grow. That's when the body integrates the lesson. Push without pause, and you get injury, not improvement. Your brain follows identical rules. Learning happens during rest, not during input. You can read for 12 hours straight. That information won't stick. But read for 1 hour, then leave space for processing. The knowledge embeds itself. The neural pathways form. The insight arrives during the walk afterward, not during the reading itself. Modern life declares war on emptiness. Every spare second gets filled. Scrolling while eating, podcasts while commuting, background noise while working. The constant input feels productive. It's actually preventing the integration that creates real growth. Information without processing is just noise pollution for your mind. Ancient tea ceremonies moved slowly, deliberately, long pauses between actions. To outside observers, it looked inefficient. But those empty moments served a purpose. They created space for awareness, for appreciation, for the meaning to land. Rush the ceremony, and you get caffeine. Slow it down, and you get transformation. The practical application changes everything. Instead of adding another habit to your morning, remove something. Create 10 minutes of pure emptiness. No input, no optimization, just space. That gap becomes where clarity emerges, where creativity breathes, where your actual priorities reveal themselves. Strategic emptiness also protects against burnout. You can't sprint forever. The warriors who fought for decades understood this. Battle hard, then retreat to stillness. The emptiness between conflicts is what kept them sharp. What allowed them to fight another day? What prevented the exhaustion that destroys lesser fighters? This reveals something about sustainability. People quit goals not because they're weak. They quit because they never built in recovery space. They tried to run at maximum capacity continuously. That's not discipline. That's self-destruction with good intentions. True mastery includes planned emptiness, scheduled nothing, intentional gaps where pressure releases. But creating space only works if you know what to fill it with when the time comes. Which brings us to the final principle. Watch a child encounter snow for the first time. Total absorption. Wonder in every movement. No assumptions, no comparisons, no jadedness. Just pure encounter with reality. That mind state is called shoshin, and losing it is the hidden reason most people stop growing. Experts develop blindness. They see through frameworks, through past experience, through accumulated knowledge. Sounds valuable. Sometimes it is, but it also creates invisible walls. The expert knows what's impossible, knows what won't work, knows what to ignore, and in that knowing, misses everything new. Zen masters trained for decades to maintain beginners' mind deliberately, not because they wanted to seem humble, because they understood that expertise creates calcification. The more you know, the less you notice. The deeper your skill, the narrower your vision, unless you actively work against it. This shows up everywhere. The entrepreneur who succeeded once keeps using the same strategy, even when markets change. The athlete who mastered one technique refuses to adapt when competition evolves. The writer who found their voice stops experimenting with new forms. Past success becomes a prison. What worked before becomes what must work forever. Shoshin offers an antidote. Approach today like you know nothing. Not because you actually know nothing. Because that mindset unlocks observations that familiarity blinds you to. Ask basic questions. Challenge obvious assumptions. Look at common things like they're brand new. Here's a simple test. Take something you do daily, something you've done 1,000 times. Now watch yourself do it with total attention, like an alien studying human behavior. You'll notice 10 things you've been doing inefficiently for years, not because you were stupid, because familiarity breeds invisible habits. This applies to learning anything new as well. People fail at skill acquisition because they bring too much baggage. They compare themselves to others. They judge their early attempts against expert standards. They get frustrated by being bad at something new. Beginner's mind says, of course you're bad. You're a beginner. That's the whole point. The freedom in this is extraordinary. When you accept being terrible at something, pressure dissolves. When you embrace not knowing, curiosity floods in. When you drop the need to look competent, learning accelerates. Children master language faster than adults, not because their brains are better, because they don't care about looking stupid. Masters in traditional arts often started over. After decades of expertise, they'd find a new teacher, approach a new discipline, deliberately put themselves back at zero, not to collect credentials, to prevent the stagnation that expertise breeds, to keep the growth edge sharp. This creates a perpetual evolution machine. You never arrive, never finish, never complete the journey, because every answer reveals new questions. Every mastery opens new frontiers. Every achievement shows you how much you still don't know. Instead of being discouraging, this becomes energizing. There's always another level, always another dimension, always more to discover. The system works because these 5 principles lock together. You start without motivation, using warrior discipline. You move in small steps through Kaizen. You act imperfectly, embracing wabi-sabi. You create space, honoring ma. And you stay curious, maintaining shoshin. Each principle supports the others. Each one makes the others stronger. This isn't theory. This is the actual system that's kept Eastern practices alive for centuries, while Western trends fade in months. The consistency isn't willpower. It's design. And now you hold the blueprint. Everything dies. The relationship you cherish, the body you inhabit, the dream you're postponing. Buddhist monks meditate on corpses not to be morbid, but to internalize the most practical truth ever discovered. Time doesn't pause for your comfort. Western culture runs from this reality, sells immortality through products, pretends tomorrow is guaranteed. encourages planning as if decades stretch endlessly ahead. Eastern wisdom does the opposite. It stares directly at impermanence, uses it as rocket fuel. The Japanese have a word, mujo. It means nothing lasts, nothing remains. Everything transforms. Sounds depressing until you realize what it actually means for your daily choices. That goal you're delaying, the universe doesn't care about your timeline. That conversation you're avoiding, death might arrive before courage does. That version of yourself you're planning to become, the opportunity window is closing while you scroll. Cherry blossoms bloom for barely 2 weeks. The entire nation stops to witness them, not despite their brevity, because of it. The temporary nature makes them precious, makes people actually show up, actually pay attention, actually experience the moment instead of assuming it'll repeat forever. Your life operates under identical rules. This day will never come again. This energy level, this particular alignment of circumstances, this exact version of who you are right now. Tomorrow you'll be different selves, different thoughts, different possibilities. The person reading this sentence exists only once. By tomorrow, they're already gone. Most people treat life like a dress rehearsal, like the real performance starts later, after they're ready, after conditions improve, after fear disappears. Meanwhile, the stage is live, the audience is watching. The curtain is already up. There is no rehearsal. There never was. Samurai lived with death beside them constantly. Not theoretically, literally. Any duel could be the last. Any battle could end everything. This didn't make them reckless, it made them awake, fully present, completely committed to this exact moment, because this moment might be all that remains. Here's what changes when you internalize impermanence. Hesitation becomes expensive. Procrastination becomes theft. Waiting becomes the riskiest gamble of all. Not because you might fail if you act now, because you might never get another chance to try. Think about the people who inspired you. The ones who actually did things, created things, changed things. They weren't more talented than everyone else. They just understood that someday is where dreams go to fossilize. They moved while others planned, started while others prepared, failed while others researched. And in that action, despite imperfection, despite fear, they actually lived. The cruel irony, people delay important actions to avoid risk, not realizing that delay itself is the biggest risk. The business not started. The skill not learned. The truth not spoken. The adventure not taken. These aren't safe choices, they're guaranteed losses. Death makes them permanent. But impermanence cuts both ways. That failure you're drowning in, temporary. That pain you think will last forever, already changing. That limitation you accept as permanent, nothing about you is fixed. The same force that erodes mountains also erodes your obstacles. If you keep moving, ancient temples in Japan are rebuilt every 20 years. Exact replicas, same wood, same techniques. They could make them permanent with modern materials. They choose not to. The impermanence is the point. The rebuilding is the teaching. Nothing maintains itself. Everything requires continuous renewal, including you. Your daily evolution isn't optional, it's happening whether you direct it or not. Cells replace themselves, neural pathways reshape, habits form or dissolve. The question isn't whether you'll change. You're already changing. The question is whether you're steering the transformation or just letting time decide for you. This connects back to everything. The samurai principle works because tomorrow isn't promised. Kaizen matters because small steps compound before time runs out. Wabi-sabi frees you because perfect isn't possible in an impermanent world. Ma creates space because rushed lives miss the entire point. Shoshin keeps you growing because stagnation in a changing world is just slower death. The system isn't about becoming immortal. It's about being fully alive in the time you have, however long that is, however short that turns out to be. So here's the final question, the one that actually matters. If this was your last cycle of sunrise and sunset, would you spend it waiting to feel motivated? Or would you finally start moving like the temporary, precious, unrepeatable miracle you actually are? The warrior doesn't wait for perfect conditions. The cherry blossom doesn't delay its bloom. And you're running out of tomorrows to waste on comfort. What will you do with the day that's already burning?